Sessions left, I can say, like, as I can show you here. Just a moment. Let me not record this because let's start with the introduction to Python programming. We have already covered object-oriented in the last class. I told you what is Unified Modeling Language, which we call as UML. And there I explained you what is a use case diagram, where we try to keep everything into a diagram, like what application we want to make, we represent it using a diagram, and that diagram we call it as use case diagram. In that, the most important thing would be is the actor. The actor is the one which is doing some action. So we represent it like this, and anything else we call it as object. So only these two things you need to remember in the first diagram, which we call as the use case diagram.
What is this
And
too?
this is actor, the one which is represented as a human, that is an actor, and anything which we can interact is an object. For example, I want to build an app which can show me Quran ayah in each page, for example. So I am the actor and I am trying to interact with this page. So this particular page is becoming the object at that place, and I am the actor. So this is how the use case diagram is represented. And the second diagram is a class diagram, where everything they are represented in the classes. So there will be a big rectangle box. In that big rectangle box, we'll keep all the things that are important. For example, I need a login page. And in the login page, we know that there are two fields. One is username and second is password, right? So in the class diagram, I represent the same thing. I represent in the big rectangle, I keep a small rectangle, and I show that there is one entity which will take username and the second entity which will take password. So all of these things we group in a class. And so it's called a class diagram. So whenever you see the big rectangles and inside those small rectangles, then that is called a class diagram. Since you will be in the security terms, like you will be, of course, working in the cybersecurity field, so you should know everything, but you don't need to go in details. You should at least try to identify what is this diagram. Is it a class diagram? Is it a use case diagram? Or is it a sequence diagram? If you remember, I show you the sequence diagram with something like this, where there is something sequence that is happening one after the other. There is a login page, and here is the database. Once a user press its username and it goes to the database to check, and the reply is sent back. So this is how the sequence diagram is represented. It will have some lines which will show us some sequences from one point to the other point. This is how the sequence diagram will be represented. So these are the three major things in object-oriented modeling, or we call it as unified modeling language. That's all. And now we are continuing from the same place. We are introducing what is meant by a Python programming language. Why are we taking Python programming language? Because it's the most easiest, open source, and easily implementable language. And that's why most of the programmers, when they start programming, they use Python.
Do I have to know the Python?
Yes, you need to know at least few things of Python, like what input I have to give and how will be the output. And you should at least know to program like sum of two numbers, addition of two numbers. If you know this, that will help you everywhere. In even if you are in the technical team, that will help you. So let's first understand what is a program. As you already know it, because we have discussed what is a program, we have discussed what is an algorithm, we have discussed what is flowchart, and if you remember, we have also discussed what is pseudocode. Yeah. So Program is just a sequence of steps to solve some problem. That's all. Okay.
Mhm.
And we have to know, like, we can use any kind of programming language to solve the problems. But in this lesson, we will take the example of Python programming language, and we will not consider Java or C. This is complex, actually, Java.
Mhm.
But can you just tell me, like, some of the use cases of program? Like, why do we need program? What is the benefit of the program? What do you think?
The benefit of programming,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you a simple example. Let's consider you have hired a new maid for your home, and you will give her some instructions, and you will tell her you have to make the coffee in this way, and you will give her some steps. What are
Mhm.
you doing? You are trying to program her for doing some task. Why? Why do you want to program her for some task?
So this task comes every day the same.
Very good. So you want to have this repeated task every day. You want her to solve your problems, like the small task of every day. And why are you programming? You can just tell, give me a coffee, make me a coffee. And
Mhm.
if she doesn't make good, you will not say to her, you will say like, no, this is not the right way. You will try to modify how she makes. You will try to train her.
Yeah.
Why? Because you want to make you want her to make a good coffee.
Yeah.
Same way, we want to have repeated task in a very efficient and easy manner. And that's why we want programs, we want help of the machines who can do our tasks. That's all.
Yeah.
So now we'll continue on a program. Like, what are the elements that are there in a program? As I told you, when you are training your maid, you will be considering some things like, if she don't know Arabic, you will train her in English, right? So the
Mhm.
first thing is language. You will identify which language you want to use for your program. If you're using Python, you will know some of the things that Python takes. Now, in that English, you should know how to form a sentence, right? You should know what is the grammar. You have to know few rules of English so that you can train your maid. The
Yeah.
same way, we want to train a computer by programming. For that reason, we need to know what is the input. Every program, it will take the input. Like, your maid takes some words from your mouth as the input, and it goes to her brain.
Yeah.
So this input is from an external source. The source can be us by the keyboard or by a smart keyboard, anywhere. So
Mhm.
this input, we need to send it to the Python compiler. And output is something which is the result that is obtained or that is displayed after the whole process, the whole program has run. And the output, it can be just displayed on the screen, or you can store it in a file. What's the difference? For example, I want the computer to give me the outcome of addition of 1000 numbers, and I want the addition of these 1000 numbers, the result on the screen. The second time, now I want the result to be stored in a file. Like, it can be a document file, it can be a PDF file, anything. If I want to store it, I should program it in that way. So the output can be either displayed on the screen or it can be stored on the file, right? Next, the programs can be executed in different ways, like sequential execution. What is sequential execution? The operations are performed in the order of sequence. Could be one by one, go one by one. Like, when you have made, I try to take simple examples so that we can understand it easily. So if I'm taking the example of maid, don't take it in like it's a silly example. No, but it's actually a great example. Training maids and training robots actually falls under the same category of training or program. Okay.
Yeah.
So in a sequential manner, you could tell your maid that these are the list of the tasks that you need to do today and do it one by one. This is sequential execution. Second is the conditional execution. For example, you have some conditions. You ask your maid to wash all the curtains of your room, and for good, for example, so that they can dry well in the air, you ask her to take it upstairs and dry it there.
Yeah.
But if there is rain or bad weather or dust, what she has to do? She shouldn't dry it there. She has to dry it in the home, right? So there is some condition. The task is there. There is some task that has to be done based on some condition. Likewise, deciding the salaries of employees in an organization. If you are working in technical team, then you will have some condition. Okay, technical team, they have these, and this is their salary. Whereas management team, they have some conditions and there will be salaries in different way. So based upon some condition, the program has to run. That is called conditional execution. Second is repeated execution, some repetition that can happen for a long time. Do you remember anything that we already discussed about repetition? Something that repeats, something that is a loop, which will run for a number of times. There were some loops that we discussed in the very beginning. Do you remember anything? I told you the names of some loops. I'll give you one example to help you. We used a repeat. There was one loop. Yeah, do you remember? And do you remember while?
Why we use it?
Yeah, we use it for repetition, for looping, for going again and again. And we also used for loop. I showed you some examples of how we can use these loops. And there was a do while loop, which we call as post-test. You remember the pre-test and post-test loop? In the post-test loop, the testing is being done after the execution of the statements. Whereas in the pre-test loop, the condition was being checked before the statements were executed. Do you remember? Pre-test and post-test loop. And at that time, I asked you question like if this is a post-test and if this is a pre-test. We did this quiz also. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is also, we discussed conditional execution. For conditional execution, we use if. In programming, we use if condition. If I is greater than 0, I mean, for example, I is salary. Salary is greater than 0, say congratulations. Else, try again, something like that. So this was conditional execution we already see. Next is reusing. Reusing some part of program for something else, that is called reusing. So these are all functionalities. These are all the ways in which we can use the program. So the program will have an input, output. It will have the direction if it's a sequential execution or if it is conditional execution, or we want to have a repeated execution, or we want to reuse some part of the program. So it depends on how we want to solve the problem. Now, next is, once we want to do some task, there will be some challenges. Likewise, when we want to program, we may face some problems, some challenges, and we'll see what are those challenges. Like, let's go back to our same examples. We are trying to train our maid in English language. Consider we are not very good in English language, then we might face some problems like we don't know grammar, we don't know how to form the sentence properly, and we don't know how to convey this particular thing. We might not know vocabulary, we might not know some of the words like how to call that, what is this food called. So we may face a lot of problems. Likewise, in the programming languages, there are rules on syntax and grammar, and also on logic. Let me tell you what is logic. Logic, it means how to solve a problem. For example, if I tell you, I want to have addition of two numbers, what operator should I use in computer to give me addition of two numbers? What is the operator that we use for addition? Plus, right?
Yeah.
Plus is the operator that we use for addition of two numbers. Now tell me, if I want to do subtraction of two numbers, what is the operator I use?
Subtraction? What's subtraction?
Yeah, subtraction is taking out something from like 3 minus 2 equals 0. And this process is called subtraction. Like we have multiplication. 3 times 2 is 6. If I want to do multiplication, I use this particular operator. So this is the logic for multiplication. If I tell you I want addition, I want multiplication of 100 numbers, then you will run a loop for all 100 numbers starting from 1 until 100.
Okay.
And each time you will try to add those numbers, or add or multiply, whatever it is. So there will be some logic behind the problem that you want to solve. Grammar in the sense, whatever you write, it should be meaningful, it should be understandable to the machine, not to us. Be understandable to us, but mostly it has to be understandable to the machine. Syntax is the rules that we need to follow. For example, I will give you one question, one sentence. This is a book. You understand what is this? This a book. So what's happening here? There is a problem. The is missing, so it's not grammatically correct. Likewise, I say this is a book, and I write K capital. So this sentence is not syntactically correct.
Yeah.
The syntax that we are using is wrong. Though it might be grammatically correct, but the syntax is wrong. So if we use wrong syntax, we cannot convey that particular program to the machine. So we have to follow all of these things. We should avoid syntax errors. It could be any typo errors, like instead of comma, if you keep full stop, there will be a difference in program. Instead of plus, if you keep minus, there will be a problem. In English, it might not be a very big problem, but in programming, it will be a very huge problem. So we have to make sure we don't do syntax errors and logical errors. Logical errors in the sense, how we are trying to solve the problem, it has to be correct.
Yeah.
If we make logical errors, we'll get something else, like the answer would be something else. If you train your maid for making coffee same as you do it for tea, then that is a logical error. If you tell her make a tea once and you train her for making tea, and next day you tell her make the coffee as you do for tea, no, there is a difference, right? So these are logical errors. When you are trying to solve two different problems, you should have two different logic that has to match the problem, right? Next is the semantic errors. Semantic error is that something, when we are dealing with difficult problems, there could be some semantic errors, like this program looks perfect, yeah, and we think that it will perform what we want, but it actually doesn't, and that is called semantic errors. As I told you, the example of coffee and tea, We think that it's the process same. Okay, coffee and tea same. No, there's a lot of difference. So we should avoid semantic errors in programming. Now, we have to look at like some of the important things in programming. Okay, by the way, it's clear here, right? These three things that we discussed.
Yeah.
Syntax, logical, and semantic, right?
Mm.
Okay. So to move forward, now we are trying to see like, what would I say? The ABCs of programming. These are the ABCs of programming. If you don't know what is this, you cannot program it. If someone asks you, what are you doing? And you say, I'm trying to program. And they may ask you, okay, what are you programming? You will say, I'm trying to make a program for addition of two numbers. Then they may ask you, what is the type of numbers? You will get confused. What do you mean by type of numbers? Numbers are numbers. What's meaning of type of number? The meaning is numbers are of different types. How? The numbers could be integers, the numbers could be float, the number could be some fraction. I mean, float means fraction. If I say 1, 2, 3, 4, these are all whole numbers, right? If we say -1, -2, -3, these are negative numbers. We can categorize it as integers. If we say 1/2, 3/4, these are all fractions. We can represent it in the decimals like 0.5, 0.75, so on. So these numbers are different. When I tell you, read this number, you can read 1, 2, 3, and you will read it -1, -2, and -3. But the computer doesn't understand.
Yeah.
We should specifically tell the computer that, hey, Mr. Computer, this is an integer. This is 1, and this is a -1. Try to understand. So we are trying to explicitly tell the machine that these are different numbers. Likewise, so we should tell what is the type of number. Clear, right? Yeah. And for you, it's clear, right? What is the type? So so all of these things, everything that we do with programming, it will be in terms of data. Data is the fundamental term in programming. Actually, it's a fundamental thing in our life. Nowadays, everything is in terms of data. Our private information, our banking information, our records, everything is data. So data is the most important thing in our life. I shouldn't say in programming, but in our life. So whenever we want to store some data in any program, in any machine, we should know what is its type. And that two things together, we call it as data type. Okay, so if someone asks you what is the type, you should understand that they are asking, do you want to use numbers, or do you want to use integers, fractions, or do you want to store ABCs? We call it as characters, letters. And do you want to store name Fatima, or do you want to store name Alia? So this is different in computer terms. So these are words. So the type data is being changed that we use. So we call it as data type. If someone asks you data type, it's the same. If they ask you type, it's okay. Like these two can be used interchangeably, okay? So now, every data, it will have some kind of value, and we can store it wherever we want. When we store it, we need to store it in the variable. If you remember, I have given you with one example, like let's consider this is our computer memory. We have our computer memory. We should tell our computer that please store a number 3. it cannot directly store the number 3. What we need to do, we should create a variable, a place with some name. For example, this is computer memory. I will say, hello, my computer. Please, can you create a space named A, and in that, store the number 3. So how will I do? A equals 3. So what I'm telling to the computer, can you please create a space in your memory, and I'm telling the space name as A. And what should you store in that? The number 3. So this is called variable. This is called variable, and the 3 is its value. The 3 is its value and A is the variable. Let's take example of home. Let's say we have our home. Let's consider we have 2 bedrooms and 1 kitchen and 1 study room. For simplicity, I'm using it. Okay. So now we will dedicate space in our home for each and everything. Let's see. I want to place the dishwasher. Where will I place it? Somewhere in the kitchen. I will dedicate a place, and that place will be named for the dishwasher itself. And whenever we, for example, if we don't have the dishwasher, if we bring it, we'll keep it there. Likewise, every place will have a name, and those things which are related to it will be stored there. Yeah. Clear? Yeah. Like every room in our home will have a name, right? Likewise, every place, the memory, it should have a name, and in that we should place the value. So this is called variable A, and this is called the value. Okay. So in that, like, variables are names used to reference a value. Are you able to connect it? Variables are names. They are the names used to reference a value. They are trying to refer a value, which is 3. We assign the value to a variable. I'm telling the same thing in the other way. We assign a value, we give a value to a variable, right? It's the same thing. We are trying to tell it on the other way around. So we are trying to reserve some value to a variable, right? And all of these variables should not be some reserved names. There are some reserved names in programming, reserved names, the names which are already defined, which are already there in the dictionary of computers. Those variables are called keywords. Yeah. Let's say, take for example, the keywords are the specific terms which have a specific meaning. I say, can you please go to the bedroom and wash the utensils? Are you able to have some meaning with this sentence? No. Why? I'm saying, go to the bedroom and wash the utensils. Is that possible? Bedroom is a keyword, is the known word which is used only for the stuff that is related to the bedroom. We cannot take the stuff from the kitchen and keep it in the bedroom. This is not understandable. Likewise, there are some keywords, there are some dictionary words for computer to understand. Like, we understand some keywords by implicitly. If I say, let's feed mutton or chicken to a cow, no, it's not understandable to human brain. Yeah. We know what's there already. Some things we know it. Likewise, computers have been trained with the keywords. Let's say int. Int is actually a short form of integer. Just now I told you what is meaning of integer. Integer are all the negative numbers and all the positive numbers and also 0. all the numbers from +1 until infinity and -1 until -infinity and also 0. So all of these numbers are called integers. So the short form of integer is int, and this is a keyword in computer programming, and the computer will understand that int means integer. So this is a keyword. If I use this int keyword for naming any variable, it will not accept. It say, this is my reserved name. Do not use it for anything else. So some of the keywords we cannot use for our programming. Those are like keywords, we cannot use it for variables, right? Okay, so we understood what is value. Value is something we store in a variable. We understand type. What is the type of data that we are storing, or what is the type of value that we are storing? Okay, let me tell you again. 3 things are very important in terms of type. Okay, so I'll tell you types again. One is integer. It's easy to remember. -1, 0, +1. And next we have float. Anything which is with the decimal. It can be 0.3, 0.9, anything which has a decimal, which has a point in between, or like 1.9 or like 33 points, anything big or small, that is float. Next, yeah, next we have character. We call it actually, we just name it as char. We don't say, the full form is character, but we call it as char in programming. We tell it char. Char means A, like A, B, C, single letters. And next is string. So these are 4 different things that we need to remember. String means some name. Let's consider it's Alia. It's a name. It's a word, right? Or we can say how. How is also a word. A word is called a string. A single letter is called char. A decimal value is called float. Integers are called int. So these are different types of data that we can store in a computer. There are more, but these are fundamental. There are first basic type. Okay? Clear? Yeah. Clear. Next, we have statements. Statement is something which asks the computer to do some task. It can be a kind of command. It can be some piece of code which, when executed, does some task. Simple example will be print. When I write print, the computer will understand that whatever is there in these 2 braces, I have to print. In these 2 brackets, whatever is there, it has to print. The computer will understand. Let's print hello in double quotes. Then the computer will give us hello on the screen. This is how statements work. Statement has some purpose to do. They have some task to do. When we execute it, it will show us the output. Next are operators and operands. I have already given you this example. I'll clarify again. So let's take 2 numbers, 3 plus 2. This is called operator. In mathematical terms and also in programming terms, we call it as operator. The something which is operating in between 2 things. This is operating in between these 2 things, right? What are these 2 things? These are called operands. We call it as operands. In programming terms, how we represent, if A value is 3, B value is 2, I will write A plus B. I cannot write 3 plus 2 in programming. I will write A plus B. And we call it as operator, and these 2 are operators. Clear? Okay? Yeah. I hope you're clear, right? Next is an expression. Expression is something which is combination of values, variables, operators, everything. I will tell you. C equals A plus B. So this is an expression. Or I will show you another thing. let's say P equals 3 plus 4 plus 8. This is also an expression. Expression is something which has a lot of things. It has some values, it has variables, it has operators. Okay? Yeah. Next, we need to know like some of the rules and naming conventions. Like some rules we need to know when we, I don't know when you started. I think it will be in the schooling, right? We learn English in our schooling itself. At that time, maybe in third grade, fourth grade, they begin grammar for us. They will show us some rules and how to write. There are some all conventions that they help us to understand English, to read, write, and like that, so on. In the programming also, there are some conventions that we need to follow whenever we want to perform programming. But most of the rules that we have in mathematics, they are same and they can be applied directly to the programming. They can be applied very directly. So for solving any expression, in mathematics, whatever the rules that we follow, we should follow the same rules in the programming also. Let's see what they are. We call it as PEDMAS. Have you ever heard it, PEDMAS?
No.
PEDMAS? No? Okay. This is P means parenthesis. Okay. And D means division. And M means multiplication. A means addition. And S means subtraction. Okay. Some of them in like there are two ways, and one is American and one is British, and they call it as BODMAS. B means bracket off, D division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. These four terms are same actually from DMAS, only these changes, parentheses and brackets. They both mean the same. It can be parenthesis like this or the bracket. It can be same, the same meaning. We can call it as PEDMAS or BODMAS. This is for our easy remembrance of how to solve equations. It can be in terms of mathematics or it can be in programming. So this is convention. Now, whenever we try to solve any equation or any expression, we always go from left to right. Left to right. Okay. As we know, in English, in mathematics, in programming, all the things we go from left to right. Whereas in Arabic, we come from right to left. Only this language, we come right to left. By the way, let's see this one. The first case, parenthesis, in which P is parenthesis, PEDMAS. And here, in this expression, 2 multiplied by 3 minus 1. What is meaning of PEDMAS is that whenever in the expression we have parenthesis, it can be bracket or it can be parenthesis. If we see that, we have to first solve that. It means in this full expression, we have 2, we have multiplication here, and we have minus, and we have the brackets. So what we'll do, in the first case, we'll take whatever is there in the bracket. What's there in the bracket? 3 minus 1. So we solve it. It becomes 2. Now, 2 multiplied by 2, right? Which is 4. You might know it already, but it's for our understanding. Next is exponentiation. Yeah, in the PEDMAS, if there is no exponentiation, we should not consider it. But if there is exponentiation, it means the power. It means the power, okay? Yeah. So in this power, 2 double star 1, it means 2 power 1, which is actually 3, okay? If it's single star, it means 2 multiplied by 1, okay? So it's exponentiation of 2, which is the value will be 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So the second precedence, the second priority would be for the exponentiation. And the third is division and multiplication. Okay. For the division and multiplication, they have same precedence. We call it as they have same priority. You can either do division first or you can either do multiplication first. It depends upon you, like you go for division first or you go for multiplication first. Okay, now let's consider this one. In this expression, we have 2 multiplied by 3. So first we will go with multiplication. Okay, and then 2 multiplied by 3 is 6 minus 1, which is 5. After which there is addition and subtraction. Again, it has the same precedence. You can go with anything that you want. But in this example, there is division. So first we have to go for division and then we go for addition. 4 by 2 is 2. 6 plus 2 equals 8. Clear? Have you understood this one?
Not really, but
Okay, I'll give you example. You will understand it, inshallah. Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, 3 multiplied by 2, then plus 6, and then minus 1. So from your understanding, let's apply PEDMAS. First, we need to see if there is parenthesis, if there is any bracket. No, there's no bracket, right? There is any exponentiation? No. Is there any division? No. Is there any multiplication?
yeah.
Yeah. So where is it? 3 multiplied by 2.
3 multiplied by 2.
Yeah. 3 times 2 is 6. So plus and minus, they have same precedence. So either we can do addition first or subtraction first. It's up to us. 6 plus 6 minus 1. 6 plus 6 is 12, minus 1 is 11. Let's take another example. 2 plus 2 bracket multiplied 3 and minus 2. In this, what shall we calculate first?
The one in the bracket?
Very good. The one in the bracket. 2 plus 2 would be 4. And then what should be solved next?
Wait. What should be the 4 multiple 3?
Very good. 12 minus 2 equals 10. So if we don't follow this precedence rules, we might face problem. Why? Because if I do the subtraction first and then do the multiplication, then the solution will be different, right? 3 minus 2 becomes 1. 4 multiplied by 1, it will be 1, which is the wrong answer, right?
Yeah.
So this is how the
PEDMAS, we have to use it in programming.
we have to use it in the programming. We also use it in the in our same like mathematics.
Yeah.
We do in the mathematics actually. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you like a few of the things which are using in Python. So as I told you before, like some of the keywords, they are reserved and we cannot use it as a variable name. And some of the keywords that are reserved are if is used for condition, else is also used for condition, and print is used for printing something. So we cannot use these variable names. Okay, this is just for our understanding, like how we should, what, yeah. If we want to use any single variable names, we cannot keep like double quotes in this. Okay, and next, there are some executions that we need to see is there is type of execution. We say true or false. True or false can be represented in terms of 0 and 1s. Actually, true takes 1 and true takes 1 value and false takes 0 value. Let's consider this is an expression 5 double times equals 6. What does it mean? We are trying to check if these two are equal. We are trying to check if these two are equal. If I say 5 equals 6, it doesn't make any sense. If I say A equals 6, it means the value of 6 has to be assigned to A. If I say A double equals 6, it means the computer will check if the value of A and 6 are equal. Then it will say yes or no. How it will say yes or no? By giving the value true or false. It will give the value 1 if it's true, if it give the value 0 if it's false. I'll tell you again. Let's store some value in A equals 3. And now I say B equals 3. Sorry. Yeah. And now I take A double times equals B. In this if condition, what the computer will do, it will check if these two values are equal. Once it's checked, it gives us result 1. So in this if condition, the value that is there is 1. It means true. Yes, the value is true. Now let's erase this 3 and keep 2. If the values are not equal, the computer will not give us 1, it will give us 0. This is how we can check if two values are equal or not. And that kind of execution, we call it as Boolean type of execution. Boolean means only two values, 0 or 1, true or false. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Next is the logical execution. As I told you, in the logical execution, there will be some conditions. If you remember in any subject, have you taken and or not? Have you taken it here anywhere? If you are from computer engineering or computer science background, you'll know it. By the way, it's okay. I'll tell you. And means two statements have to be true. Two statements have to be true.
Yeah.
This is the use of and. If you see here, x has to be greater than 0 and x has to be less than 0. So what does this expression means? The x values will run from 1 to 9. So these two conditions have to be satisfied. So this is the use of and. Or is something where only one condition has to be satisfied. Either n multiplied by 2 should be equal to 0 or n multiplied by 3 should be equal to 0. Let's say,
So, or is there another two answers?
yeah, it can take any answer, like any one from these two. Any one from these two. For example, if some guests come in our home, what do we ask? Do you want tea or coffee? These are options, and they will select only one, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there are some times where we select two, not in terms of coffee. We can take something like if you are eating khubz, you need something to eat with khubz. We usually don't eat khubz just like that, right? We have some cream or we have some something with it. Just next is not. Not is something which is opposite of the actual condition. If I say not x greater than y, it means y has to be greater than x. X should not be greater than y. The reverse of actually what is there in this bracket. So this is how the usage of logical expression. These are logical expression for the computer to understand by using and, or, and not. Okay? Yeah. So these are called logical expressions. Next, conditional execution. We have already shown this in the previous unit, but again, it's kind of revision. So this is a condition. Whenever there is condition, it is represented in a rhombus box. We call it as conditional box in flowchart. And the condition is written here. If x is less than 0, if it's yes, print x is a negative number, right? If x is not less than 0, it's not a negative number, it's a positive number. So this is execution by checking the condition. Next is alternate execution. For example, what we are trying to do here, we are not checking condition, but we are giving two options. if x is divisible by 2, then it's an even number. If it's not divisible, it's an odd number, right? There are two ways of execution, alternate execution, two types of execution. You will understand more about it in the coming lectures, inshallah. We have conditions, we have alternate. Now let's see one of the basic example of Python programming language, like how the programming is done in Python. So let's see, it's again, I don't want you to understand this program. I'll tell you, like, we will literally do the programming using a programming tool, online tool, and we'll begin with very small programming, like very easy, so that you will not get confused with us. By the way, let's see what is a function. If you remember, I have told you what is a function. Like, we can create a function with some name which will do our task, like sum. Let's so again, sum. Yeah, if you remember, I have told you some examples of function. Okay, let me explain here. It's more. Yeah, we have a very big program. In the very big program, we are doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulo, and all of these things. For example, I don't want to run this program every time. I want only one part of this program, like addition. Then you want only this part and you don't want all of these things. What we can do? We cannot, we have to divide this program by using functions, and each function will do one task. And whenever we want to use some part of this function of this big program, we just call this particular function. Okay, so this is the use of functions, where we try to divide the big program in different tasks, and whenever we want to do that task, we will try to call only that particular function. Okay, now let's check our understanding about this particular lecture. In the Python programming interpreter, if we keep this particular equation, what will be the outcome?
24.
Okay, very good. So you have applied the PEDMAS, right? Next, true or false? In Python programming, you are required to use name definitions or inbuilt functions.
False.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Very good. So these were two questions from this chapter. Alhamdulillah, very good. I hope you understood very nicely this lecture. Inshallah, we'll continue next unit, and I'll send you the quiz of this unit. If you have done the previous one, just let me know. I'll send you one by one so that you don't forget whatever we have discussed. Yeah, do you have any questions?
Oh, we still have 4 units, right?
Yeah, we have still 4 units. Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't.
All right. You're welcome. See you, Baba Fatima.